వారు
విమల్ పలుకుల్లో కేసరి.
నమస్కారం, ఇది సంగతికి స్వాగతం. పహల్గాం ఉగ్రవాద దాడిలో 26 మంది అమాయకుల ప్రాణాలు తీసి తన పైశాచిక ఆనందాన్ని చాటుకుంది పాకిస్తాన్. అయితే ఆపరేషన్ సింధూర్తో ప్రతీకార దాడి జరిపి పాక్కు పీడకల మిగిల్చింది భారత్. పాక్లోకి చొచ్చుకెళ్లి మరీ 100 మంది ఉగ్రవాదులను మట్టుబెట్టడం సహా ఆ దేశానికి చెందిన కీలకమైన సైనిక ఆయుధ స్థావరాలను దెబ్బతీసింది. మరి పహల్గాం ఉగ్రవాద దాడి తర్వాత ప్రతీకారానికి భారత్ ఎలా సిద్ధమైంది? ఎలాంటి వ్యూహాలతో పాక్ను చావు దెబ్బతీసింది? పాక్ డ్రోన్లు, క్షిపణులను ఎలా ధ్వంసం చేసింది? ఈ అంశాలకు సంబంధించి ఆర్మీ ఎయిర్ డిఫెన్స్ డైరెక్టర్ జనరల్ లెఫ్టినెంట్ జనరల్ సుమర్ ఇవాన్ డికన్హాతో ముఖాముఖి.
Thank you, General Dikona, for coming to the podcast. Couple of things that Ajit and I want to discuss with you. But first, of course, because everything is so topical these days, we'll begin with today's news. I think I'll let Ajit explain as to what happened here. And if you could tell me about this, about what our adversary targets and how we respond to it.
Pakistan Army has no legitimate targets to strike inside India, nor does it have the courage or capability to stand up to Indian armed forces face to face. Hence, it uses terrorism as a national policy and resorts to unmanned aerial weapons launched from its own soil. Drones and long-range missiles were launched and fired from his own territory, which were his mainstay. Indian military installations, civilian population centers, including innocent ladies and children, were also not spared and were considered as legitimate targets by the Pakistan military. He has even targeted religious places specifically, a case in point being the Golden Temple located in Amritsar, which is internationally renowned and a place of faith for everybody. It saw a surfeit of drone and missile attacks, which were thwarted bravely by our Army AD gunners. The Indian Armed Forces and Army Air Defence gunners will continue to defeat all his designs and thwart all aerial threats always.
Sir, this was the GOC 15 Infantry Div in Amritsar, and we had interviewed him yesterday, and we were told that how the Army Air Defence thwarted all the missile attacks and drone attacks on the Golden Temple specifically, along with the other places that they had targeted. So this is a big feat, sir. Like you have been, like the Army Air Defence has been the main obstacle between Indian cities and important places, and the Army Air Defence has thwarted all the major attacks that took place on our cities. So,
well, you know, it's very interesting that you bring this out as what has happened yesterday. But, you know, fortunately, we visualized what he was capable of doing. And hence, realizing that he would target it because he had no legitimate targets across the border.
Explain this to people who don't understand what legitimate targets are, because we saw the soundbite. India at this stage, the legitimate targets were the terror bases.
Yeah.
So what does legitimate target for Pakistan mean?
So he had no legitimate targets. So in order for him to, he was more interested in creating confusion, chaos internally, and hence we visualized that he would target our civil population and our religious places of fame. And hence it is very nice, while only Karthik Shashadri has only covered one part of the story, it was very nice that the head Granthi of the Golden Temple allowed us to deploy our guns. And it is possibly for the first time in maybe many years where they switched off the Golden Temple lights for the first time, so that we could see the drone coming. I think that's what, you know, the Golden Temple hierarchy realized there was possibly a threat when it was explained to them. They allowed us to deploy guns to secure to protect a national monument of international fame, which is visited by so many hundreds and thousands of people every day. And hence these guns were deployed and the Golden Temple lights were switched off so that we could clearly visualize the drones as they were coming in. And that gave us a greater clarity in the sky, because as and when you saw the light, you knew what to engage. Our border towns, retired ex-servicemen from Punjab, Haryana, parts of Jammu, they were prepared to come out of retirement and they were saying, what can we do to help? I think that's huge. I mean, if you got the local population on your side, I mean, wanting to fight side by side with you with whatever capability they had, and some of them were well retired. And we had 80 gunners coming in like this, that what can we do to help you? I think it only tells you that whether it's Punjab or it's Haryana or Jammu and Kashmir or any other parts of India, this actually rallied a lot of patriotism, especially among our ex-servicemen fraternity from the border states.
Right.
I think it speaks volumes about our national character.
Also, the first aid, one, I need to know about the air defense mechanisms which were used in and around that area. One, that. And the second is our attack out there in just 23 minutes, how we managed to get our targets on the first day. Then when they responded, our air defense mechanisms, how we stopped both.
So, it's like this, that the Nagorno-Karabakh Azerbaijan clash, Russian-Ukraine clash, and even to some extent the Israeli current conflict going on, taught us about the huge capability that drones have. And, we realized that Pakistan, by virtue of its back-end support from Turkey and maybe a northern adversary as well, had a plethora of drones. And we also knew that, in order to take on an effective air defense integrated system that we have, like the Army and the Air Force are integrated in this case, he would have to saturate us. So if you see his concept of employment, he would first send in low altitude, cheaper drones in large numbers to saturate your radars. And they would also force you to open up your radars. So I think it's very important that the Army looked at, not emitting, so that we didn't give out our positions. Because the moment you gave out your emitter position, his next line of drones would come to hit the radar.
So what do you do then? You
switch it on at the appropriate time.
Okay.
So you switch it on when you realize that the target is within your gun range. You switch on the radar intermittently, slew your guns and engage the target. But if you continuously emit, that's what the drone is wanting you to do. Saturate your screen and then bring in someone from the rear, an armed drone, and then hit your radar as a kamikaze drone. So I think that the training that we did, actually we anticipated this, and you won't believe that about maybe on the 26th, 27th and 28th, we did a simulation exercise at the behest of our army chief in the border areas, where we simulated drone attacks on the weapon system. The air defense is a defensive measure. The air defense is not an offensive. The air defense is something where you protect your own airspace. So by a trickle method, we gradually built up our air defense right along our western borders. I think so. That's how we actually got the troops familiar with terrain, because we initially deployed not on a VAVP centric mission that we normally do.
What does that mean?
So what happens is that normally all air defense resources, because ours is a big border, we have about 3,500 border with Pakistan. So you can't have air defense right through. So you have vulnerable points, vulnerable areas which are pre-identified, which are allocated air defense resources. Like if you have an ammunition dump, or you have an airfield, or you have a logistic base, or you have even some population centers, or you have a temple like the Golden Temple. So you predetermine where you want to put these. Now some of these could be at the border, some of these could be 50 kilometers, some of them could be in the rear areas of the tactical battle area. So what we did initially is we pushed up as much guns as far forward as possible, because we realized that the efficacy of the guns is the most important against drones.
Look, for Pakistan, it's a thin strip of land. So for them, the depth is not there all that much. We have a greater depth. But yet now you know that the drones also have a longer range. So for us, will we have to go as far back as Delhi now, Haryana, Delhi, because how far are we? So the drone range comes there also, right? So in case of a Sindoor plus situation, if it happens, will we have to have guns along nearby too?
No, so it is like this, that the air defense role has been divided between the Army, Navy and Air Force, to look after India's airspace. And while the Air Force is the primary respondent, but each of us, so the Army looks after the airspace and the rear areas in the TBA, tactical battle area. So we look after the entire TBA. The Air Force looks after rear air defense. So major refineries, major cities like Delhi, they would all come under the gambit of the Air Force air defense. So assuming that you have an effective identification system in place, like a good radar system in place, which is capable of detecting these drones, and you have a reasonably good engagement in a couple of tiers of defense. So you have a gun system on the first tier, maybe at 3 kilometers, then you got something at 10 kilometers, and then you have a leaker which comes through to be very unfortunate. But assuming that you have multiple tiers, it is not sequential, but the best weapon takes on the drone. So I don't think there is fear to areas in depth. I think the air defense of the country between the Air Force and us proved that in the 2-3 days of conflict, in spite of the huge barrage of drones that came pan-western borders, we have not really had civil casualties.
But they did use not just cheap drones, they used Barak, Shapar and the others too, right? So how did we take those down?
So, it is like this that...
And who did?
Yeah, so every weapon system, whether it's a gun or a missile, a V-SHORAD, a shoulder-fired missile, or the Akash indigenous weapon system, or the MR SAM, they all have a certain altitude of operation. So, like the guns have an altitude of between 1.8 to 2 kilometers. And then you have the V-SHORAD, the next level, go up to 3.5 kilometers. So, then you have the Akash, which can go up to 18 kilometers. The MR SAM, which goes up to 14 kilometers. The S-400 goes up to 18 kilometers. So depending on the target which was being picked and the cost, I mean, you realize if a plane is coming, then it's the S-400. If it's an AVAX, it's an S-400. If it's a smaller drone like a UCAV, then an S-400 would be too expensive to use. So then you use the MR SAM or use the Akash, and it still comes closer, then you use the gun. And so the altitude of ingress decides the best weapon system. And in an automated system like the Akash that we have currently, it's a fantastic system. It is still in the process of rolling out, but it has a system of between the ISCCS of the Air Force and the Akash of the Army. It ensures an effective effective weapon allocation.
మాస్టర్ మైండ్స్ ద ప్రైడ్ ఆఫ్ ఇండియా. కామర్స్ విద్యా చరిత్రలో కని విని ఎరుగని ఫలితాలు కేవలం 6 నెలల్లో CA కోర్సుల్లో 3 ఆల్ ఇండియా ఫస్ట్ ర్యాంకులు సాధించిన ఏకైక సంస్థ మాస్టర్ మైండ్స్ ద ప్రైడ్ ఆఫ్ ఇండియా.
75वीं रेट डाल रहा है दादा भाई के घर पे.
बॉइलिंग वाटर की रेट, टर्माइट्स की रेट, आग की रेट, बोरर की रेट, सबका एक ही टारगेट, घर का फर्नीचर. पर जब आपके घर का फर्नीचर बना हो एक्शन टेसा के बॉयलो बोर्ड से, तो इन सारी रेट से डरने की कोई जरूरत नहीं. एक्शन टेसा कोई नहीं है. इन एसोसिएशन विद रेट 2 ओनली इन सिनेमास फ्रॉम May 1st.
ఎలా ఉంది ఈ మ్యాజిక్ ఈ లలిత జ్యువెలరీలో మాత్రమే. పాత నగలిచ్చి 5 to 11 months లో అదే బరువుకి కొత్త నగలు తీసుకోండి. ఎక్స్ట్రాగా ₹1 కూడా ఇవ్వకండి. మ్యాజిక్ ఓల్డ్ గోల్డ్ ఎక్స్చేంజ్. విమల్లో అద్భుతమైన ఈ సుగంధ ద్రవ్యాలన్నీ కలిసి పరిమళిస్తే తను పరవశిస్తుంది. ఇక మనసు ఈ అమోఘమైన రుచికి దాసోహమై పూర్తిగా మునిగిపోమంటోంది. విమల్ రుచి అంటే ఇలాగే ఉంటుంది. ఒప్పుకుంటారు కదా? విమల్ పలుకుల్లో కేసరి.
ఇది టాయిలెట్ కోసం. షారుఖ్,
ఎవరిని రుద్దాలని మీ ప్లాన్?
టాయిలెట్ ను.
కానీ మనం డిటర్జెంట్ తో బట్టలు కదా ఉతుకుతాం.
లేదు చూడండి, టాయిలెట్ నే కదా శుభ్రం చేస్తున్నాం.
అయినా కూడా పాలిపోయిన మరకలా.
ఇప్పుడు కొత్తగా తలతల్లాడుతున్నా ఏమైనా?
మారిపోతుంది. హార్పిక్ ఉందిగా, ఇది డిటర్జెంట్ కంటే 10 రెట్లు మెరుగైన శుభ్రత అందిస్తుంది. పాలిపోయిన మరకలు తీసేస్తుంది. ఇంకా ఎంత మంచి వాసన.
వావ్.
ఇప్పుడు ఇంటి టెన్షన్ దీనికి వదిలేయండి. ఇప్పుడు చిల్ గా ఉండండి.
సరికొత్త టాయిలెట్ కోసం హార్పిక్ ఉందిగా.
మ్యాచ్ నైతే సేవ్ చేయాలి, కానీ వేడి. కెప్టెన్ కూల్ ఇప్పుడు కూడా ఎలా ఇంత కూల్?
వేడిలో బాడీ కూల్ అవ్వనంత వరకు మైండ్ కూల్ అవ్వదు. అందుకే డెటాల్ ఐసీ కూల్ ఇది వేడి మరియు చెమట వల్ల కలిగే క్రిములను తొలగిస్తుంది, ఇంకా 3 రెట్లు ఎక్కువ చల్లదనాన్ని ఇస్తుంది. అవ్వండి కెప్టెన్ కూల్ విత్ డెటాల్ ఐసీ కూల్.
ఆఫీస్ నుంచి బయలుదేరాను. ఏమైంది? నడు నొప్పిగా ఉంది. ఆరు ఆరు
నీకు నడుము నొప్పి ఉంది కదా?
ఉండేది.
మూవ్ ఇది త్వరగా పనిచేస్తుంది, వెచ్చదనం తెస్తుంది. ఇక నొప్పిని దూరం చేయండి. ఆత్మీయుల కోసం మూవ్ అవ్వండి.
ఈ రోజు కూడా అయితే మూడు సాడ్ గా ఉందా?
అవును, కానీ ఎందుకు?
డల్ బాత్రూమ్ వల్ల డల్ మార్నింగ్.
కానీ మేము డిటర్జెంట్ ఉపయోగిస్తాం.
డిటర్జెంట్ మానేయండి. హార్పిక్ బాత్రూమ్ క్లీనర్ మెరుపుని తీసుకురండి. మొండి మరకలను తొలగిస్తుంది, 10 రెట్లు ఎక్కువగా శుభ్రం చేస్తుంది. హార్పిక్ బాత్రూమ్ క్లీనర్.
ఎసిడిటీ కోసం ప్రపంచంలోనే నంబర్ 1 అయిన గావిస్కాన్ ఉపయోగించండి.
వాట్స్ హ్యాపెనింగ్ వ్యాస్? ఐ యు అవుట్ ఆఫ్ యువర్ మైండ్? ఇప్పుడు ఆలోచించాల్సింది రామ్ గురించి. నీలా బట్టలు వేయడం స్టార్ట్ చేశాడు, నీలా బుక్స్ చదవడం స్టార్ట్ చేశాడు, అండ్ పెద్దయ్యాక నీలానే he will end up nothing.
Watch our film Anaganaga, streaming now in 4K and Dolby Atmos with the ETV Win Premium Plus subscription for just ₹699 per year.
Akash Tir and ISCCS combined together, like the controls of an S-400 can be directed by an army officer, and similarly if an army Akash has to be fired at some target.
The S-400s is completely ICCS controlled.
Okay, sir.
Because the cost is so high, and it provides more of an area air defense. So that is predominantly with the Air Force. This time we had the Akash and all the weapons below Akash under the control of the Joint Air Defense Control Center of the Army Air Defense. Yeah, so that's where the Akash Tir is based. That's the heart of the Akash Tir system. This is the ISCCS of the air. So we have rolled out Akash. In fact, the complete translation of the ISCCS picture to the tactical battle area is through the Akash Tir. It's the most fantastic system where you have a centralized picture defining what is enemy targets, and it comes down. And it goes down right as far forward as the weapon end. The Air Force has its surveillance radars coming from the front. We have our radars coming, which are smaller ranges, coming from the lower end. And this fusion takes place. It's a multi-fusion sensor fusion of data which takes place. And that's how you get a recognized air-space picture. So that in that recognized picture, you're clearly told that this particular set of aircrafts are enemy aircrafts. This helicopter is an enemy helicopter. The next concept that we are looking at is, while this is a centralized system, how do we look at centralization by incorporating distributed networks? Distributed networks is giving you a flexibility that wherever the least distance, it's a plug and play model into the automated system. So you get into a system, into the Akash Tir, plug and play it. If you have a dronal attack, it joins the system. So it's the next system. So that gives you tremendous redundancy. It gives you tremendous situational awareness. And especially because drones coming in, imagine if the drone picture has to go all the way to the ISCCS and come down, although it's in milliseconds, you can't have so much of allocation done. Whereas if the front command post does it, then he passes instructions to everybody that you got a drone attack coming in, take it on.
So the VR SAM and the QR SAM, tell me, were they used? We've seen pictures of that. So were they used? How are they used? Were they effective or not?
So the MR SAM was used, yes, definitely by the Air Force. The Pichoras were used by the Air Force.
Are they now battle ready, all these systems? It's the first time I'm presuming that in a conflict that they were used.
So, it is like this, that the rollout of the system was complete in north of Jalandhar. South of Jalandhar, the system was in the process of rolling out. So wherever it was completely rolled out, it was extremely effective. Whereas in the process of rolling out, the training was also being done simultaneously with the equipment induction. And so we used the old system and the new system concurrently. So the old system was a little more time consuming. It had its time delays. The new system is absolutely in milliseconds. So we used concurrent systems to ensure transmission of data to engage.
And these are both indigenous?
The Akash seed is completely indigenous. The IACCS is completely indigenous. DPSU Bell is the person who has integrated this whole concept pan-India. So every corps has adequate every corps has a JDC, that is a Joint Air Defense by the Army, and it has got multiple command posts at each level to take this picture right down.
Now the Army Air Defense is also being credited for being the slayer of the Chinese and Turkish pride, because all their drones, everything that were sent, the Pakistanis were sending, they've been defeated in a big way by the Army Air Defense and the other forces engaged in this. Can you tell us, sir, how many of them came, what types of drones, big, small, the payloads that they were carrying, and how many numbers we have destroyed?
A large number of drones which fly a little low, and they were effectively brought down. The moment the next layer comes up, it's taken a little higher. Wherever it came into the gun range, we tried to impact it. The jammers and the EW systems also tried to impact it by jamming and by cyber spoofing or a cyber takeover. There were attempts by us. We have the capability.
And the narrative only is that the Chinese spoofed and they jammed.
No,
the international narrative. So we did it too.
We also have a capability.
We just don't boast about it.
Yeah. So we also have a capability. We also jammed, and we also did laser. We have laser systems, 7 of them, which is again indigenously developed. The IDDS and IS, that is the drone detection and interception system. The laser was also effective, but the only thing with the laser, it takes one target at a time. So we used all these different systems to ensure. So when you talk, so the first layer I told you was these low level, then these low level which could be even Amazon for 40,000 rupees a drone or whatever, but they were hardened to some extent.
You can't tell, sir, in the radar that ye is drone mein to koi payload nahi hai, kuch nahi hai.
And that is what we are looking at in future also, that the radar is one method of picking up a target. If with the radar you have an electro-optical system that shows you a photograph of the target, you can actually see the target.
Okay.
So some of our air defense guns, the upgraded L-70 guns, have the EO system in place, electro-optical system. The Shilka weapon system upgraded, which did a lot of damage in this particular conflict, also has an EO system. So you have to have a number of sensors to ensure you detect the target. Then you have a passive RF detector, which just detects RF emissions. Then you have the acoustic system, acoustic sensor, and you also have the the EO system. So a complementarity of these 4 sensors is very important to ensure you can detect.
How much did they learn from the Hamas conflict to send these drones? Is that kind of what the Hamas did to Israel? Is that the same tactic that they used, that just saturate us with drones?
Yeah, but in the Hamas conflict, they actually had human beings flying in. Okay. So you had about 1,300 Hamas flying in on the first day. So yeah, that saturated and created.
But subsequently, the Iron Dome is all the time it has to fight this
it has to
swarms that keep coming in.
You have to have, so hence it is very important, as I told you, to have distributed networks to be able to take on the system, because otherwise every communication system has a certain amount of bandwidth. That means it can carry so much of data of targets. Now if it is made for say 500 targets and you have suddenly 1200 targets, so you choke your systems. So I think this distributed network is a very important thing.
When your adversary purchases an aircraft or a submarine or something, it's an international deal. It can't be done undercover. Everybody knows. But when it comes to drones, nobody knows na ki kitna order kiya hai, kya aa raha hai, isme kya payload dala hai. So how does one deal with this kind of a situation?
That's a brilliant question. The concept of air threat, the numbers, the quantity of aircraft as you brought out, we knew Pakistan had so many aircraft, China had so many aircrafts. You could fly an aircraft 4 times a day. Your pilot to cockpit to aircraft ratio was so much, so you could generate so many sorties per day. So it's on the basis of this that our ammunition calculation was done. That if you have so much of quantitative and qualitative threat, how much do you cater for? But as you brought out, there is no fixed number of drones. So we've got to go back to the drawing board to understand that how much of logistic stamina that we require for such a new threat. This new threat has actually, you can't have expensive missiles. It doesn't work out that way. It's too expensive. So we've got to have systems in place which, like gun ammunition, which has a greater amount of sustainability over a period of time, because there is no quantity. As you said, you can have 5,000 drones, you can have 10,000, you can have 20,000. Now, if you have, that means you have to cater for ammunition. And I think we've got to get back to understand that how do we cater for this ammunition, because it's not quantifiable in numbers. And hence and not only that, first is the amount of ammunition, and secondly is the type of ammunition. Today, if you have you have a particular ammunition which is like a stone. So if you throw a stone at a drone, you might hit it, might not hit it. But if you throw a stone which actually fragments into small pellets or small stones, then you will get maybe 5-6 drones. So the L70 pre-fragmented fuse cartridge is the ammunition that we used in adequate measure here. And this is the future of how to take on threat of drones, is to use pre-fragmented ammunition, so that as it comes close to the target, you're dead sure that if it fragments and it throws out these little splinters, you will hit a drone rather than just throw a stone directly.
ఆపరేషన్ సింధూర్లో వెలకట్టలేని పాత్ర పోషించిన గన్ వ్యవస్థ, సమర్థ వ్యూహాలే విజయానికి కారణం. ఆ వివరాలు చిన్న విరామం తర్వాత.
ఈ రాత్రి ఖలీబల్లి చేయాలి. ఆఫ్ కోర్స్, కానీ ముందు స్టింగ్ గోల్డ్ నైట్ ఫ్యూల్.
రాత్రి 3 గంటలు, తెల్లవారుజాము 4 గంటలు. స్టింగ్ గోల్డ్ నైట్ ఫ్యూల్, ఎనర్జీ కికింగ్ స్టింగ్.
యాక్షన్ టెస్సా వారి HDHMR బోర్డులు కావాలి.
ఆ పచ్చ బోర్డులు తేరా బాయ్.
కానీ ఇవి యాక్షన్ టెస్సా వారి HDHMR బోర్డులు కావే.
ఆకుపచ్చ బోర్డులన్నీ ఒకేలా ఉంటాయి.
ఇది చెదలు బోరర్ రెసిస్టెంటేనా, ఇంకా వాటర్ రెసిస్టెంట్?
మేము ఉన్నాం కదండి. ప్రతి పచ్చ బోర్డుని HDHMR అనుకుని ఇంటికి తెస్తే బాధపడగలరు, ఎందుకంటే కేవలం యాక్షన్ టెస్సా వారి HDHMR బోర్డు మాత్రమే వాటర్, టెర్మైట్ ఇంకా బోరర్ రెసిస్టెంట్.
మ్యాచ్ నైతే సేవ్ చేయాలి, కానీ వేడి. కెప్టెన్ కూల్, ఇప్పుడు కూడా ఎలా ఇంత కూల్?
వేడిలో బాడీ కూల్ అవ్వనంత వరకు మైండ్ కూల్ అవ్వదు. అందుకే డెటాల్ ఐసీ కూల్. ఇది వేడి మరియు చెమట వల్ల కలిగే క్రిములను తొలగిస్తుంది, ఇంకా 3 రెట్లు ఎక్కువ చల్లదనాన్ని ఇస్తుంది. అవ్వండి కెప్టెన్ కూల్ విత్ డెటాల్ ఐసీ కూల్.
ఇది టాయిలెట్ కోసం. షారుఖ్,
ఎవరిని రుద్దాలని మీ ప్లాన్?
టాయిలెట్ ను.
కానీ మనం డిటర్జెంట్ తో బట్టలు కదా ఉతుకుతాం.
లేదు, చూడండి, టాయిలెట్ నే కదా శుభ్రం చేస్తున్నాం.
అయినా కూడా పాలిపోయిన మరకల.
ఇప్పుడు కొత్తగా తలతల్లాడుతున్నా ఏమైనా?
మారిపోతుంది, హార్పిక్ ఉందిగా. ఇది డిటర్జెంట్ కంటే 10 రెట్లు మెరుగైన శుభ్రత అందిస్తుంది, పాలిపోయిన మరకలు తీసేస్తుంది, ఇంకా ఎంత మంచి వాసన. ఇప్పుడు ఇంటి టెన్షన్ దీనికి వదిలేయండి. ఇప్పుడు చిల్ గా ఉండండి.
సరికొత్త టాయిలెట్ కోసం
హార్పిక్ ఉందిగా.
కాఫ్ సిరప్ ఎక్కడుంది?
ఇక్కడ ఎలా?
ఆగండి, ఎక్కడైనా దగ్గుని ఆపండి. కొత్త రెడ్ స్టెప్సిల్స్ డ్రై కాఫ్ తో. ఇందులో కఫ్ సిరప్ గుణాలున్నాయి. ఇది దగ్గుని తగ్గిస్తుంది, కొన్ని గంటల వరకు దీర్ఘకాల ఉపశమనాన్ని ఇస్తుంది. కొత్త రెడ్ స్టెప్సిల్స్ డ్రై కాఫ్ సిరప్ ఇప్పుడు మీ జేబులో.
క్లాసులో అందరికంటే ఎక్కువ అటెండెన్స్ నాది, రోహన్ది కాదు. ఇంత తేడా ఎందుకు?
తేడా అలా ఇంత కొంచెమే. ఇంత కొంచెం డెటాల్ ఇక్కడ, ఇంత కొంచెం ఇక్కడ, ఇక్కడ ఇంత కొంచెం
ఇక్కడ.
అందుకే నువ్వు వ్యాధుల బారిన పడవు, స్కూల్ కూడా మిస్ కావు.
ఇంతతోనే ఇంత తేడా ఉంటుందని.
ఎక్కడ డెటాల్ ఉపయోగించబడుతుందో అక్కడ ప్రజలు తక్కువగా అనారోగ్యానికి గురవుతారు.
ఆఫీస్ నుంచి బయలుదేరాను. నడు నొప్పిగా ఉంది. ఆరు
నీకు నడుము నొప్పి ఉంది కదా?
ఉండేది.
మూవ్, ఇది త్వరగా పనిచేస్తుంది, వెచ్చదనం తెస్తుంది. ఇక నొప్పిని దూరం చేయండి, ఆత్మీయుల కోసం మూవ్ అవ్వండి.
విజేతల అనుభవాలు, స్ఫూర్తి ప్రదాతల అంతరంగాలు,
చెరుకూరి గ్రూప్ సమర్పించు చెప్పాలని ఉంది ప్రతి శనివారం రాత్రి 9 గంటలకు, తిరిగి ప్రతి ఆదివారం ఉదయం 8:30 మీ ఈటీవీ తెలంగాణలో.
చెరుకూరితో బంధం ఒక నమ్మకమైన అనుబంధం.
ఆపరేషన్ సింధూర్లో గగనతల రక్షణ వ్యవస్థ పాత్ర వెలకట్టలేనిది అని ఆర్మీ ఎయిర్ డిఫెన్స్ డైరెక్టర్ జనరల్ లెఫ్టినెంట్ జనరల్ సుమర్ ఇవాన్ డికన్హా అన్నారు. అందులోనూ ఆర్మీ ఎయిర్ డిఫెన్స్ గన్ వ్యవస్థ కీలక పాత్ర పోషించిందని తెలిపారు. అనేక ప్రపంచ దేశాలు క్షిపణి తరంలోకి మారుతున్నా మనం గన్ వ్యవస్థను వదులుకోలేదని వివరించారు. పౌరులకు ఎలాంటి ప్రాణనష్టం జరగకుండా పాక్ డ్రోన్లు, క్షిపణులను విజయవంతంగా కూల్చివేశామని తెలిపారు. ఆపరేషన్ సింధూర్లో ఆయుధాలు ఎలా పనిచేశాయి, వ్యూహాలు ఎలా విజయవంతం అయ్యాయి అనే విషయాలకు సంబంధించి లెఫ్టినెంట్ జనరల్ సుమర్ ఇవాన్ డికన్హా నుంచి మరిన్ని వివరాలు తెలుసుకుందాం.
Sir, you have the Akash system, you have the, in the army, you have the Akash, you have the MR-SAM, you have the Iglas, you have the L-70s, you have the Zu-23s. So which one of them is the hero of this conflict, sir?
It is undisputable that a gun system has been extremely effective, an air defense gun system. And I think that we in the army have to thank my predecessors and the army that we, unlike other countries which started moving away from guns into the realm of missiles, the Indian army held on to its guns. And even our successor gun, which is to come up for trials in July, we realized over a period of time that the gun is an irreplaceable form of air defense. And I think whether it's the L-70 or the Zu or the Shilka, or even a LMG or an MMG in ACAC role which the infantry has, is going to make a huge difference as far as drone destruction goes. So the gun is the undisputable, the air defense gun.
So these guns must have destroyed at least around 60% of the drones that Pakistan sent, sir?
Yeah, I would say that quantity would be a reasonable assumption, yes.
And what is the what would be the total number of drones, large size, small size, medium size, that they would have sent in this in these 4 days, sir?
I would say anything between maybe 800 to 1,000 across the whole western border, yes.
In 4 days?
In 4 days, yeah, roughly.
And majority of them got destroyed?
Yeah, a large number. And one thing for sure is all the UCAV drones, which actually carried a payload, although their intent was to harm our civil population and they were directed towards population centers, we ensured that they did not cause any damage. And I think the proof of the pudding is actually in what we actually saw, that there were no civilian casualties. But this is something that we've got to be very, very careful of in the years ahead, because if this is form of conflict, then our civil population areas are as important, if not more, than anybody else at the border. The US has a very interesting system called the CURAM. It is counter to rockets, artillery and mortars. So they have a gun which fires at about 4,500 rounds per minute, and they are largely at population centers. So they are meant to protect population centers. The Iron Dome is another concept which you spoke of. Is again, since Israel of course is small, but the Iron Dome is also a form of a population center protection.
So one thing I want to talk about is the narrative war also, because as we are putting out more images of the destruction that was caused by our forces in Pakistan, now people are getting to know that what Pakistan had done initially was propaganda, not backed with facts. One quote which I have, which you can expand on, which says that the 4-day conflict has many defense experts say that India has entered the elite club of nations with fully integrated automated air defense command and control capability.
I think there's tremendous work in progress that is required. While we have been successful in taking on this current challenge, but we've got to be able to detect drones in far greater numbers. We've got to have a detection system in place.
Shield, detect, take down.
Yeah. After detection, you must be able to identify that it is an enemy drone, and then you must be able to proliferate this information to destroy it as much fast as possible. I think that is something that we've got to work on, so that you can make sure that you bring them down in as many numbers that come. A very, very minuscule number, if any, get across, if you've got a couple of layers. We've got to have the Akash Tweet play out. Akash Tweet has not been configured in the drone domain, the drone warfare domain. So you've got to look at how does drones management systems work. The Akash Tweet is largely for aircrafts, helicopters, and for UAVs of bigger types like the Searcher and the Heron and the TB2 and all that. But when you talk about smaller drones, the system has just been put through its first test. But we got to strengthen it. We got to have greater amount of sensors involved in it. We got to have types of sensors involved in it, and then be able to disseminate this information as quickly as possible, so that our interdiction and destruction of this threat is as far forward as possible.
Is the adversary doing the same? Would be.
I'm sure.
Okay.
I'm sure. After all, if you see today between Russia and Ukraine, this catch-up game is on a daily basis. So you find one day the Russians claim a huge success with their drone capability. Then the Ukraine comes in with some newer capability. So you just see in the matter of the last 8 months how conflict has changed. Phenomenal evolution of drones has taken place. While this development takes place, how does the counter to this play out? It has to also move as quickly as possible. And I think that we've got to be a little flexible in procuring the counters, because otherwise you'll be a little behind of the curve.
Rahul Gandhi, leader of the opposition in the Lok Sabha, tweeted, informing Pakistan at the start of our attack was a crime. EM, which is External Affairs Minister Jaishankar, he's publicly admitted, he said, that the government of India did it. Who authorized it? Now, he put this tweet out, which was a reaction to Mr. Jaishankar, the External Affairs Minister, in case for foreign audiences who
At the start of the operation, we had sent a message to Pakistan saying we are striking at terrorist infrastructure. We are not striking at the military. So the military has an option of standing out and not interfering in this process. They chose not to take that good advice.
Now, here what has happened is what the External Affairs Minister was saying at the start of the operation did not mean that before the operation.
For any conflict to be successful, surprise is the greatest element. We got 100 terrorists, if not more, in their respective places where the camps were. I mean, that itself gives you an answer. If this was so clearly enunciated before that I'm coming and I'm going to target your terrorist camps, then they would have been empty. We got big names in the terrorist, Pak terrorist hierarchy, only tells you that the matter of surprise was at its highest.
Let's come to the objectives. What was the mission? What were you told has to be done?
As an DG-AD, I was told to provide air defense. The forces that were told to respond proportionately in as minimum collateral damage being provided, no harm to civil population or religious places, so that what caused us pain, what caused 26 families pain, if not more, directly or indirectly, that is actually avenged.
Pakistan has said that they used their Chinese fighter jets. They have said it openly. China is, of course, boasting about it. And, till recently, international media reports were always that Chinese technology is reverse technology. Their aircraft was a butt of all jokes, whether in America or Europe, from the defense manufacturers to the media reports and all. But now they have managed to come out in this smiling in the narrative, saying that our J-10s were fabulous. What do you have to say to that?
If you see the Chengdu aerospace company stock value, the way it has gone down, I think that would give you an answer.
Okay, and Dassault went up.
Were we able to, as air defense, were we able to hit any of them, sir, the aircraft?
It is like this, that I'm sure Pakistan as a nation is well aware of the capability our air defense has. It is well aware of the capability of our Indian Air Force. It is well aware of our capability of our EW systems. And hence, flying in depth was not going to give them any major benefit. In my perception, that they really didn't fly too much. The very fact that they were using civilian aircrafts to fly international and national carriers only tells you that they were trying to ensure that, knowing our nation doesn't harm anybody from a civilian in any form, they knew we wouldn't try and shoot down their aircrafts even if they were behind the Pakistan international carriers or the national carrier of Pakistan. In spite of conflict, the first thing that you do in conflict is to make sure that your airspace is closed for national and international flights. But they never let that happen. They let these flights fly. And I think that's a very major lesson that we've got to take away. That imagine what would have happened to their people. I think the restraint showed by the Indian armed forces and the Air Force, we had, if we wanted to be as aggressive as we could be, and we brought down a Pakistan international carrier, a national aircraft with civilians on board, I mean, that would have been criminal.
So doesn't the world look into this matter? Like, which means that suppose a PIA flight is flying from Venice to Islamabad. I'm just randomly saying, why will they allow their citizens to sit in a PIA aircraft knowing that Pakistan International Airlines can fly in a conflict zone? Doesn't that matter to the world?
I think it tells you what a mindset. I think that's what we should look at.
If your enemy is not behaving like a uniformed military army is supposed to behave, it's behaving more like a jihadi army, which is using a civilian front. Even the terrorist targets, if you see the target that we hit in Bawalpur or in Muridke, they had their terrorist training camp, and outside they had a mosque and a public health center. So now you're talking in terms of it's a military jihadi complex, and so your enemy is not just a military, is not just a uniform military, right? So do you get to understand that mindset where they can do that?
It's irrationality, insensitivity. Insensitivity is another aspect, which is they're insensitive towards certain things.
ఇంటర్ ఎంఈసీ చదివే విద్యార్థులకు సుమారుగా 1000 గంటలు సిఏ ఫౌండేషన్స్ బోధిస్తోన్న విద్యా సంస్థ ఇతర విద్యా సంస్థల్లో చదివే విద్యార్థులను అడిగిన తరువాతే మాస్టర్ మైండ్ లో చేర
75वीं रेड डाल रहा है दादा भाई के घर पे।
बॉइलिंग वाटर की रेड, टर्माइट्स की रेड, आग की रेड, बोरर की रेड, सबका एक ही टारगेट, घर का फर्नीचर। पर जब आपके घर का फर्नीचर बना हो एक्शन टेसा के बॉयलो बोर्ड से, तो इन सारी रेड से डरने की कोई जरूरत नहीं। एक्शन टेसा कोई नहीं है, इन एसोसिएशन विद रेड 2 ओनली इन सिनेमास फ्रॉम May 1st।
ఎలా ఉంది ఈ మ్యాజిక్ ఈ లలిత జ్యువెలరీలో మాత్రమే. పాత నగలిచ్చి 5 to 11 months లో అదే బరువుకి కొత్త నగలు తీసుకోండి. ఎక్స్ట్రాగా ₹1 కూడా ఇవ్వకండి. మ్యాజిక్ ఓల్డ్ గోల్డ్ ఎక్స్చేంజ్.
విమల్లో అద్భుతమైన ఈ సుగంధ ద్రవ్యాలన్నీ కలిసి పరిమళిస్తే తను పరవశిస్తుంది. ఇక మనసు ఈ అమోఘమైన రుచికి దాసోహమై పూర్తిగా మునిగిపోమంటోంది. విమల్ రుచి అంటే ఇలాగే ఉంటుంది. ఒప్పుకుంటారు కదా? విమల్ పలుకుల్లో కేసరి.
బికినీస్ ఎవ్రీవన్.
వద్దు, నేను ఇక్కడ కింద రెడీగా లేను.
జస్ట్ వీట్ ఇట్. సూటబుల్ ఇక్కడ ఇంకా కిందకి కూడా. ఇది వీట్ సెన్సిటివ్.
2, 3, 4 tell the people what you want. It was an itsy bitsy teeny weeny yellow polka dot bikini that she wore for the first time today.
The smoothest way to sexy. Wait.
ఆఫీస్ నుంచి బయలుదేరాను. ఏమైంది? నడు నొప్పిగా ఉంది. ఆరు ఆరు
నీకు నడుము నొప్పి ఉంది కదా?
ఉండేది.
మూవ్. ఇది త్వరగా పనిచేస్తుంది, వెచ్చదనం తెస్తుంది. ఇక నొప్పిని దూరం చేయండి. ఆత్మీయుల కోసం మూవ్ అవ్వండి.
మ్యాచ్ నైతే సేవ్ చేయాలి, కానీ వేడి. కెప్టెన్ కూల్. ఇప్పుడు కూడా ఎలా ఇంత కూల్?
వేడిలో బాడీ కూల్ అవ్వనంత వరకు మైండ్ కూల్ అవ్వదు. అందుకే డెటాల్ ఐసీ కూల్. ఇది వేడి మరియు చెమట వల్ల కలిగే క్రిములను తొలగిస్తుంది. ఇంకా 3 రెట్లు ఎక్కువ చల్లదనాన్ని ఇస్తుంది. అవ్వండి కెప్టెన్ కూల్ విత్ డెటాల్ ఐసీ కూల్.
ఆశా త్వరగా టిఫిన్ చేయి. డ్రైన్ మూసుకుపోతే కిచెన్ కూడా మూసుకుపోయినట్లే.
బేబీ తెరుచుకోవడం లేదు. ఇండియాస్ ఫాస్టెస్ట్ డ్రైన్ క్లీనర్ డ్రైన్ తెరుస్తుంది. కొత్త హార్పిక్ డ్రైన్ ఎక్స్పర్ట్. దీని టర్బో యాక్షన్ ముండి బ్లాకేజీలను కూడా తొలగిస్తుంది మరియు డ్రైన్ తక్షణమే తెరుస్తుంది. కొత్త హార్పిక్ డ్రైన్ ఎక్స్పర్ట్.
ఇండియాస్ ఫాస్టెస్ట్ డ్రైన్ క్లీనర్.
ఎసిడిటీ కోసం ప్రపంచంలోనే నంబర్ 1 అయిన గావిస్కాన్ ఉపయోగించండి.
అమ్మా క్లాసులో అందరికంటే ఎక్కువ అటెండెన్స్ నాదే, రోహన్ది కాదు. ఇంత తేడా ఎందుకు?
తేడా అల్లా ఇంత కొంచెమే. ఇంత కొంచెం డెటాల్ ఇక్కడ, ఇంత కొంచెం ఇక్కడ, ఇక్కడ ఇంత కొంచెం
ఇక్కడ.
అందుకే నువ్వు వ్యాధుల బారిన పడవు, స్కూల్ కూడా మిస్ కావు.
నేను రోహన్ కి కూడా చెప్తాను ఇంతతోనే ఇంత తేడా ఉంటుందని.
ఎక్కడ డెటాల్ ఉపయోగించబడుతుందో అక్కడ ప్రజలు తక్కువగా అనారోగ్యానికి గురవుతారు.
We have seen a lot of videos have come from Pakistan that where we can see them firing ballistic missiles from populated areas. Like I can never imagine that in India I'll be moving out in my car and seeing some army guys firing missiles from a truck. Is that also a new lesson from this war that like they, to avoid retaliation from Indian forces, they may even go to population areas, fire from there and then hide somewhere? Isn't it something like what happens in Israel-Hamas conflict, where they fire from the Hamas terrorists, fire from populated areas, then hide in the same houses, hospitals, and then act as if nothing has happened, and then when hit they claim when civilians die they claim victimhood.
Yeah. So it's something that we've grown up learning, that whenever you fire an effective weapon, you're liable to be detected, and hence after you shoot you scoot, and you move into something called a hide, which is pre-planned and pre-designated. So our forces, whenever we fire, not to be getting, you'll immediately get a counter attack in that particular with the weapon locating radar. So the first thing we do is after we fire, we go to a hide, and a hide is nowhere near a population center. But this is something that, yes, Pakistan gets into population centers. I mean, what do you do? It's a concept that we are seeing now, and it's a concept that we are aware of, and we've got to think as how we're going to deal with this in future.
So after we hit, Chaklala and things, there's now, in the Pakistani media, there's a lot of talk that there's a rethinking in the Pakistan Fauj that they may need to move out of Pindi because it's too close to the border. And at the same time, they have made it clear that हम बलोचिस्तान पे अटैक नहीं करेंगे, हम KPK पे नहीं अटैक करेंगे.
I would just like to say that India has an adequate arsenal of weapons to take on Pakistan right across its depth. From its broadest to its narrowest, wherever it is, the whole of Pakistan is within range of. So we are absolutely capable from our borders or even in depth, where we can take on the entire Pakistan. And the GHQ can move from Rawalpindi to KPK or wherever they want to move, but they're all within range.
Okay.
So they'll have to really find a deep hole. Yeah, something really deep.
And even not just our striking range, sir, even our defending range is wider than Pakistan, with the S-400 coming in 400 kilometers plus. So that's not the.
Did you see the entire crowd in India? Everybody on social media, S-400. कहाँ है S-400 का picture? कहाँ है? Where did we strike? So tell me about that. The impact of this time in this 4-day conflict, of all the imagery that has come out. So everything backed with facts. How much does that play? How much impact does that have on the forces also, and on the enemy?
Our job is to protect our sovereignty, our people, and if we've been able to ensure that no harm has come anywhere, I think it's tremendous satisfaction for the defense services of the country. I mean, all the forces together. That it's just unfortunately 5 soldiers who lost their lives, and it's very unfortunate that it happened in this whole conflict. So I think that the very fact that we've been able to protect our motherland from this onslaught, which was aimed at causing a lot of problems in population centers and in our cantonments. I mean, the very fact that we've given this reassurance to our people, not only to our civil population, but let me tell you that a lot of our own Jawans, officers' wives were staying in cantonments. And they were also equally concerned about these drone attacks. And the very fact that we ensured that this did not manifest in any casualty, I'm sure it not only made the soldier feel proud, it made the families feel proud, and finally the population of India feel proud. I think that's the takeaway.
Another thing which people have is like, itni jaldi kyun khatam kiya? Lots of people saying, why did we end it so quickly? And why are we all the time saying, we hit because you were going to hit us? Why is this? Why does the Indian Army always have this defensive posture that we are a defensive army?
I think that the way India is growing as a nation, it's a responsible nation. It realizes that with economic growth comes a certain amount of responsibility. And with that responsibility, we put restraint on ourselves. And I think that's the major takeaway. It's not that why did we stop? I think responsible nations, progressive nations, economically stronger nations put self-imposed restraint so that we know when to put a halt to things.
Just wanted to ask you about your Corps of Army Air Defense, sir. Now, I've been covering defense for the last 22 years, sir. AD was never at the forefront of war. How do you see the role expanding in near future, and how the importance of AD has gone up, sir?
While Army Air Defense was always looked as an important combat support arm of the army, but we always felt that the decisive factor would be, with the armored corps and the artillery and the mechanized at some stage. But with population densities having increased, with obstacle-ridden terrain having increased, and with an RMA, a revolution in military affairs, bringing in drones and changing the concept of air threat, I think that the Army Air Defense or the air defense has undergone a whole, a rethink as to how this threat will manifest. And I think that is how Army Air Defense is. The people have realized that without a strong air defense, I mean, if you can't protect your own airspace, then if this is safe, then you can go ahead and achieve what you want beyond that. So the roles are very defined, but I think this particular change in drones and UAVs and whatever UCAVs has brought into the fore that air defense and EW make a huge battle-winning combination wherever you want to field them.
It's the government called it an impenetrable wall. The statement was India's air defense systems, combining assets from the Army, Navy and primarily the Air Force, performed with exceptional synergy. These systems created an impenetrable wall, foiling multiple attempts by Pakistan to retaliate. So it's a lot of responsibility also on you now, because we are still in Operation Sindoor is still on. So to keep that impenetrable wall still stationary and working, to keep that on is a great responsibility still.
Yeah, so we are continuously looking at where are the possible gaps, what could be our vulnerabilities, which particular part should we strengthen, how should we deploy and strengthen that particular aspect. So, it's work in progress. It's improvement in progress. It puts a greater responsibility as the Director General of Air Defense to be able to reassure the people of our country that we are there to ensure that, I don't know about an impenetrable wall, but we'll try and do as much as we can to ensure the protection of our motherland and the airspace is protected.
We talked about the religious places that the Pakistanis were trying to hit. Golden Temple was one where they were trying to hit. Now in north of Amritsar is Vaishno Devi. Now, was there any attempt to hit there also, and was that well protected by AD, sir? And any other significant?
I have not really heard, but wherever there was a possible religious sensitivity involved, we had deployed protection.
So last question is that we've seen pictures of the Pakistan Army opening relationship negotiations with Bangladesh. Prior to Operation Sindoor earlier, we've seen that happening. Do you see this bloodied army now using that sector, the airfields there? Are we going to be talking about building this impenetrable wall of air defense on that side too? Because Bangladesh could be used as a fertile ground to attack us from there.
So I think that, we analyze our vulnerabilities at regular intervals. We look at how do we take on threats and how they're going to manifest. And we're definitely looking at how do we strengthen wherever our vulnerabilities lie.
On that note, thank you so much and wishing you all the best for the future.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It's been a pleasure meeting you for the first time, and of course speaking to Ajit and you. You actually captured the fervor of the Indian population and the people of India as you spoke to me.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
ఇది సంగతి. మరిన్ని విభిన్న అంశాలతో మళ్ళీ కలుద్దాం. నమస్కారం.
యాక్షన్ టెస్సా వారి HDHMR బోర్డులు కావాలి.
ఆ పచ్చ బోర్డులు తేరా బాయ్.
కానీ ఇవి యాక్షన్ టెస్సా వారి HDHMR బోర్డులు కావే.
ఆకుపచ్చ బోర్డులన్నీ ఒకేలా ఉంటాయి.
ఇది చెదలు బోరర్ రెసిస్టెంటేనా? ఇంకా వాటర్ రెసిస్టెంట్?
మేము ఉన్నాం కదండి. ప్రతి పచ్చ బోర్డుని HDHMR అనుకుని ఇంటికి తెస్తే బాధపడగలరు. ఎందుకంటే కేవలం యాక్షన్ టెస్సా వారి HDHMR బోర్డు మాత్రమే వాటర్, టెర్మైట్ ఇంకా బోరర్ రెసిస్టెంట్.
కార్తికేడి వాడికి హెల్ప్ అవసరం. నువ్వే రిగ్రెట్ అవ్వవు కదా. వెళ్ళకపోతే లైఫ్ లాంగ్ రిగ్రెట్ అవుతాము. మౌంటైన్ డ్యూ భయం వదులు, గెరిచూడు.
ఆఫీస్ నుంచి బయలుదేరాను. నడు నొప్పిగా ఉంది. ఆరు ఆరు
నీకు నడు నొప్పి ఉంది కదా.
మూవ్ ఇది త్వరగా పనిచేస్తుంది, వెచ్చదనం తెస్తుంది. ఇక నొప్పిని దూరం చేయండి. ఆత్మీయుల కోసం మూవ్ అవ్వండి.
ఇది టాయిలెట్ కోసం.
ఎవరిని రుద్దాలని మీ ప్లాన్?
టాయిలెట్ ను.
కానీ మనం డిటర్జెంట్ తో బట్టలు కదా ఉతుకుతాం.
లేదు చూడండి, టాయిలెట్ నే కదా శుభ్రం చేస్తున్నాం.
అయినా కూడా పాలిపోయిన మరకల.
ఇప్పుడు కొత్తగా తలతల్లాడుతున్నా ఏమైనా
మారిపోతుంది. హార్పిక్ ఉందిగా, ఇది డిటర్జెంట్ కంటే 10 రెట్లు మెరుగైన శుభ్రత అందిస్తుంది. పాలిపోయిన మరకలు తీసేస్తుంది. ఇంకా ఎంత మంచి వాసన. ఇప్పుడు ఇంటి టెన్షన్ దీనికి వదిలేయండి. ఇప్పుడు చిల్ గా ఉండండి.
సరికొత్త టాయిలెట్ కోసం హార్పిక్ ఉందిగా.
75वीं रेड डाल रहा है दादा भाई के घर पे.
बॉइलिंग वाटर की रेड, टर्माइट्स की रेड, आग की रेड, बोरर की रेड, सबका एक ही टारगेट, घर का फर्नीचर. पर जब आपके घर का फर्नीचर बना हो एक्शन टेसा के बॉयलो बोर्ड से, तो इन सारी रेड से डरने की कोई जरूरत नहीं. एक्शन टेसा कोई नहीं है. इन एसोसिएशन विद रेड 2 ओनली इन सिनेमास फ्रॉम May 1st.
కాఫ్ సిరప్ ఎక్కడుంది?
ఇక్కడ ఎలా?
ఆగండి ఎక్కడైనా దగ్గుని ఆపండి. కొత్త రెడ్ స్టెప్సిల్స్ డ్రై కాఫ్ తో. ఇందులో కఫ్ సిరప్ గుణాలున్నాయి. ఇది దగ్గుని తగ్గిస్తుంది, కొన్ని గంటల వరకు దీర్ఘకాల ఉపశమనాన్ని ఇస్తుంది. కొత్త రెడ్ స్టెప్సిల్స్ డ్రై కాఫ్ సిరప్ ఇప్పుడు మీ జేబులో.
మ్యాచ్ నైతే సేవ్ చేయాలి, కానీ వేడి. కెప్టెన్ కూల్ ఇప్పుడు కూడా ఎలా ఇంత కూల్?
వేడిలో బాడీ కూల్ అవ్వనంత వరకు మైండ్ కూల్ అవ్వదు. అందుకే డెటాల్ ఐసీ కూల్. ఇది వేడి మరియు చెమట వల్ల కలిగే క్రిములను తొలగిస్తుంది. ఇంకా 3 రెట్లు ఎక్కువ చల్లదనాన్ని ఇస్తుంది. అవ్వండి కెప్టెన్ కూల్ విత్ డెటాల్ ఐసీ కూల్.
ఈ రోజు కూడా అయితే మూడు సాడ్ గా ఉందా?
అవును, కానీ ఎందుకు?
డల్ బాత్రూమ్ వల్ల డల్ మార్నింగ్.
కానీ మేము డిటర్జెంట్ ఉపయోగిస్తాం.
డిటర్జెంట్ ను మానేయండి. హార్పిక్ బాత్రూమ్ క్లీనర్ మెరుపుని తీసుకురండి. మొండి మరకలను తొలగిస్తుంది, 10 రెట్లు ఎక్కువగా శుభ్రం చేస్తుంది. హార్పిక్ బాత్రూమ్ క్లీనర్.
ఎసిడిటీ కోసం ప్రపంచంలోనే నంబర్ 1 అయిన గావిస్కాన్ ఉపయోగించండి.
ఎందుకు రామ్ నేనంటే నీకు అంత ఇష్టం?
ఎందుకంటే నువ్వు నాన్నవి కదా.
Watch our film Anaganaga, streaming now only on ETV Win.
విజేతల అనుభవాలు, స్ఫూర్తి ప్రదాతల అంతరంగాలు,
చెరుకూరి గ్రూప్ సమర్పించు చెప్పాలని ఉంది ప్రతి శనివారం రాత్రి 9 గంటలకు, తిరిగి ప్రతి ఆదివారం ఉదయం 8:30 మీ ఈటీవీ తెలంగాణలో.
చెరుకూరితో బంధం ఒక నమ్మకమైన అనుబంధం.